The iPhone 5S is faster, it's got a better camera and a pretty awesome fingerprint reader, but it kinda looks the same as the iPhone 5. So let's go to see if those upgrades are enough to keep Apple in the smartphone game.
It works surprisingly well. Overall, I'm getting good frame rates and the game works pretty smooth. I mean, you can play high graphic games on a $100 smartphone perfectly fine. What else can I say? Now, even though high graphic games work fine, they do eat a lot of battery. And that's our next point. Battery life. This is something that might disappoint a little. This phone has a battery of 1570 mAh.
Black unit showing scratches easier than the white. We haven't had any such problems on our black unit, but you may want to check yours and take it out of the box. The phone feels incredibly light. It's 3.96 ounces are really hardly even noticed in the hand at all. Sometimes time, and that's for Verizon and Sprint, and that's through no fault of the carriers. That's due to Apple's chip architecture. So let's talk about the screen, one of the biggest differences of the iPhone 5. It's the same screen as the 4S, just half an inch bigger. It's a 4-inch Retina display with a resolution of 640 by 1136. For those of you keeping track at home, that's a 326 ppi.
With design, this phone has one of the best designs out there. In fact, this design was so popular, Apple relaunched this phone as iPhone SE last year. The chassis is made out of metal, full aluminum body with Gorilla Glass front, and honestly, it's still one of the best phones you can get for one-hand use. It fits perfectly in your hand, and don't fall for the small size factor. This phone is packed with a lot of features and specs. Holding it in hand,
The device is smaller. I understand that. I think the consumers have understood that as well, but a gesture of good faith would have been including an adapter in the box. When the iPhone first originally launched, it included a dock. Nothing that was necessary to the phone, but it was a really nice gesture on Apple's part. I would have liked to have seen that be repeated and have some sort of adapter included with purchase. Another big improvement here is true 4G data. We've got LTE and it is fast. On AT&T, I'm getting speeds about twice as fast as HSPA.
latest flagship from Apple, the iPhone 7 Plus. And doing a Geekbench test, the results don't surprise me. The iPhone 7 Plus performs better, but compared to what you're paying, $100 versus $900. And the iPhone 5S all of a sudden looks like a better deal. And these are just numbers, get it repaired.
Get more useful, but the lack of NFC is really going to limit what Passbook can do. So what's the conclusion here? This is hands down the best iPhone yet. If you have an iPhone 4 or earlier, it's a great upgrade, absolutely going to be worth it. If you have a 4S, only upgrade if LTE and a bigger screen are must-haves. Otherwise, the majority of the features are OS-based to be had just by updating to iOS 6. As usual, Apple's years ahead of the competition when it comes to design, materials, and build quality.
Comfortable with small screen size, this phone has a lot to offer. Screen resolution is 640 by 1136, multi-touch display with Gorilla Glass. It's running on Apple's A7 chip, which is a couple years old, but it still performs fairly well. In fact, the latest Apple TV is still running on an A8 processor. The iPhone 5S was also the first iPhone to have a
The only company that comes close is HTC, and it's a very distant second. The OS, when it was first released, really matched the hardware in terms of innovation. However, in subsequent versions, it's really fallen short. Not to say the operating system doesn't work. It works very well and it's very capable. It's just starting to show its age. Anyone looking to buy an iPhone or any smartphone, this is going to be a great purchase for you. So what does this get in the Techno Buffalo scale? 1 to 10, this phone gets a very solid 9. Points deducted for software, no voice and data over the CDMA networks, and lack of NFC. If you're in the market for a smartphone, this is going to be a great choice and it'll do a wonderful job keeping you company for the next 2 years. I'm John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo. Be sure to check us out for the latest and greatest tech news at Techno.
Now let's talk about camera. This phone has an 8 megapixel back camera with f2.2, which is capable of shooting Full HD 1080p at 30 frames per second. And we also have slow motion at 120 frames per second. We also have a 1.2 megapixel front facing camera with f2.4. And in the last few years, cameras have definitely received an upgrade, but this phone is still capable of taking.
The iPhone 5S is faster, it's got a better camera and a pretty awesome fingerprint reader, but it kinda looks the same as the iPhone 5. So let's go to see if those upgrades are enough to keep Apple in the smartphone game. And like I talked about on my top 5 iPhone 5S pixel size, much like we saw on the HTC One. So the megapixels on the iPhone 5S now size, which is a complete overhaul of anything we've seen before. And there are a lot of good things that I like about iOS 7, and there are some things that drive me crazy. I really do like the access to quick settings, so you can quickly access and toggle your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, brightness, you can control your music player. AirDrop actually works really well. You're not gonna notice that extra performance. It's not like you're gonna make phone calls 10 times faster. Now on the other hand, if you really use your camera a lot on your phone and you think the flash or the slow motion video might benefit you, then maybe there's a reason there. But overall, I think you really can wait till the next iPhone comes out and kind of save your money for now. Now lastly, like I talked about, the fingerprint reader is definitely more of a luxury,
which is half of what you can get in an Android. But keep in mind, Apple is really well packed and optimized hardware and software. So for most part, optimization can make up for the small battery. Also, this phone is overall smaller than other phones that pack a much bigger battery. But even with what we have as of now, Apple claims about 10 hours of battery use. But this phone being used, you won't get anywhere close to that number. I got somewhere around 4 hours on screen, but this is something that could totally depend on how old your phone is and how much it's been used. If battery is a major problem, you can get a new battery which can be installed yourself and it's fairly easy. But for average, you should get somewhere around 4 hours of battery life, so if you are a heavy user like me, something to keep in mind. Wrapping things up, this phone is running on Apple A7 64-bit processor, available in 16, 32 and 64 GB, with 1 GB of RAM, a 8 megapixel back camera that can record 1080p with 30 frames per second, first generation Touch ID, dual tone flash, and a 1570.
And as goofy of a name as it is actually my favorite color right now with the iPhone 5S lineup. Next is the highly sought after gold model, which is extremely hard to find at the moment, and last but not least, the classic silver and white that we saw on the iPhone 5. Now there were rumors at the possibility of a 128GB iPhone 5S, but those were put to rest as the current lineup stands at 16, 32, and 64GB. And that's going to run you, give or take at the time of this video, $199, $299, or $399 respectively with a new 2-year US contract. But if you are interested in unlocked pricing and availability, I will have those links down.